Hi, it's Sandy Parker and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. Today we're going to do a comparison of the older brush blenders that, well, older, last year's, and the ones that came out this year, and I hope you'll stay tuned. Well, you know how I also like to do my comparisons with different kinds of paper. So these were last year's models that I was talking about. And I have one labeled Oxide for Oxide inks and one for dye inks. And I'm going to be using this blendable Wendy Vecchi Make Art Blendable Dye Ink in Poppy. And then in the Oxide inks, I'm going to use Picked Raspberry. And the reason for that will be evident in a moment. Then we have this year's blending brushes. The foam brushes, this is why I chose the colors I did. The foam brushes that I found came in colors, and they also come in these cute little containers, but they're round. They're not flat or square like the older ones were. They're completely round, and I think they're really fun. I haven't played with them at all yet, and the thing I really liked about them is the container is recyclable. It's a 5, and I recycle all the way to 6s here, so that makes me really happy in case I decide I don't want the cases. And so then there's that color, and then the orangish color I'm going to use for the dye ink. I might even have a redder color than that. I'll show you the colors that I bought. They had more colors. I bought these on AliExpress, all of them, and they came, this is like a chocolate color and a green. I like the cases, and a white or off-white. It's like a bone color. I got a couple of those because I figured I could make it any color, basically. I guess I got 3 of those. I'll just keep finding more of them, I guess. And then a light pink. So I guess that's going to be the closest I'll get to the red. So I can use oranges and reds in this. Then that would be what I call foam brush. I don't know if you can see my list here, but I have foam brushes, which are those. And then these are what I called the large brushes, and these just slide out of their cases, and they're big versions of these. And like I said, I haven't tried them yet, but I've heard good things about them. One of my friends told me to get this, and so I did. I think it was Sherry that told me to get them. And I have a dye and an oxide. The thing about these is to clean them, all you're supposed to do, theoretically, is just take a cloth and wipe them between colors. And I like how once it goes into the little case, it goes in and then it snaps. Listen. And then it won't come back out. So that's nice. You don't have to worry about it getting messy anywhere. And again, snaps in. Nice. And I can get them out in and out easily. I didn't have any problem doing that. So hopefully anybody else who has hand issues won't have a problem with that. I called those large brush on my list. So let me tell you more about what I did in papers. I chose to do a watercolor paper just to see how it blended on watercolor. And it's Canson XL watercolor. Then Walmart came out with a new brand. They used to have Georgia Pacific paper, and I really liked the Georgia Pacific. I can't find it anymore. They now sell what's called Pen Gear. It's supposed to be 110 pounds, but it's super flimsy. I don't recommend it at all so far. Maybe it's the greatest blending paper in the world. We don't know. We'll know in a minute. Then Nina Solar Crest 90 pound. Of course, this has always been a good blending cardstock. And then finally, my favorite to use for card bases, and that's Michael's Recollection Heavyweight cardstock, and it's 110 pounds. Here, how thick that is. Let's go back to that Pen Gear. I mean, come on. It's flimsy. Anyway, and I'm going to start with my watercolor paper because I figured why not? Got to start somewhere. And I'm going to start with dyes, and I'm going to do each one, every color, no, every paper in the same one so that I don't have to keep switching out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing in the gold handle, which is this, is we're going to be doing the dye-based ink. And we might get better as we go along because the brush will get more ink in it. This ink is has hardly been used, so it shouldn't be dry at all. And I'm going to put a scrap paper behind this because you know I'm going to make a mess if I don't. The first one we're using is the Wendy Vecchi Poppy Make Art Blendable. And I'm going to start off the paper and go on. And I'm not going to press hard. I'm just going to blend. And I think that does a nice job of blending on that. Okay, I'm going to go to the Michael's Recollection Heavyweight Gold handle. Again, starting off. I don't think it blended as nicely as it did on the watercolor paper, and it left kind of a spot in the center. We'll keep going though. Then this is the Walmart Pen Gear. Could be the only time that this is going to be used. Off the paper and then on. I don't know, I think that blended pretty good, frankly. Still is kind of light in the center. Let's see if I can make it a little darker. No. Okay. And lastly is the Nina. Starting off. And what I found with these brushes, and I don't know if any of you have found this or not, but what I noticed when I use them is if I use a very light pressure on them, I do much, much better when I'm, you know, than if I push. So don't push hard on them. That's my words of wisdom for you. I'm going to just kind of wipe that one off so I get the excess off of it. Then we're going to go to the picked raspberry in the oxides. I'm going to start in reverse order. I'm going to do the Nina first. And I'm going to use my right hand so I can go off the paper and then on. This blends really nice on there. There's that one. Did I use the wrong one? No, I changed. Geez, I forgot. I didn't think I changed brushes. Jeepers creepers. Then this is the Pen Gear from Walmart. I mean, it does seem to blend really nice on this paper. I don't know why. Like I said, if you got to find a use for it, this could be it. Then we're going to go to the watercolor paper. Not bad. And then lastly, our Michael's Recollections Heavyweight. I am left-handed, but I can pretty much use both hands to do this with. And the reason I'm telling you that is I didn't want you to think that I had an unfair advantage on the left side. Okay, let's look at these. I'll put them all together so you can see them. And you can decide for yourself which one blends the best. In the Oxide inks, if I had to guess, I would say that this Walmart Pen Gear blended the best. I mean, it looks really clean. I can see lines in the Recollections. I also can see lines in the Nina. And then in the Canson XL, maybe I didn't do as much. Let me see if I can get a little more ink on that. On the left edge, it looks like it faded out on the left edge. So let me just see if I can get a little bit more on there. Okay, so if I was going to pick, which of course I am right now, I would say that in the Oxide family, the Pen Gear and the Canson XL did the best. In the dye inks, I think the Nina I guess these three really did pretty well. Maybe this one is a little blotchy. Okay, I would say maybe the Canson XL and the Nina in that. What do you think? Compared to these two. Now, obviously, this is just me doing this. So, you know, I'm not the world's greatest blender, but I'm just saying, if I had to pick, I would say, as it's dried, I don't know. These two on the left I thought were the best. But that pen gear, honestly, I don't see anything wrong with it other than, no, I guess it does have that kind of darker spot in the middle. Anyway, let's move on. So the next one we're going to do are the foam brushes, and that would be these. And we're going to do the dye base first. Put the lid back on that. And that, again, is the Wendy Vecchi Blendable Poppy Color. Not many people have those inks. I bought them when they first came out at a stamp show, and it was one of those things where Wendy Vecchi was there, and I was just so excited to meet her and hear all about her new product, and that's the last I've ever heard of this ink. So if any of you have it and love it, I never use it. I don't know why I don't use it, but I don't. Okay, now we're on to the foam brush, and this is on Michael's Recollection. And let me get these out of the way. I want to start off the paper again and kind of go on. Okay, the thing I noticed right away is that this piece does that. You see that how it's moving? It does that when you're trying to blend. So I'm getting a very uneven blend. Bummer. Let's hope it's only on that color. Ink it up again, and that was on the Michael's Recollection. Ink this bad boy up, and we'll go on to, this is the Walmart Pen Gear. I'm just gonna, you really can't start off the page because it really drags. I mean drags. No, see how I got a darker splotch in the middle? And on this one, let me see if I can clean up my center spot. Maybe if you keep going over it, but it doesn't look like that center spot's any better. Now I made the edges darker. Ugh. Alright, well, so far, not good. This looks like there's a problem with the paper, that it has that spot that the ink won't cover. So that's not the blender's fault. That is clearly the fault of the paper. This is the Nina Solar Crest. This one's doing a much better job, I think. The thing that I noticed about this is it's really hard not to get those dark edges. Well, that doesn't look too great either. Kind of bummed I bought all these brushes now. Alright, last but not least, this is the Canson XL watercolor. And I'm just going to roll the brush the way it wants to roll. Maybe I should have done that all along because this is looking way better than the other ones did. Huh. Well, obviously that looks the best of any of them. I am going to turn these over and try that rolling system that I did on that and see if that makes a difference on these other papers, because maybe the trick is just rolling this. No, not really. Let's try the next one. Could be, you don't know. Could be one of these, that's the issue. Well, that one isn't bad. Not great, but it's not as bad as the other one. And that's the Walmart Pen Gear. Let me do one more. Just making, you know, I don't like to give up. This one, again, I'm going to do the rolling system. Maybe that is the answer, is you just need to roll it like a ball. But, on the other hand, it does get really dark in the center. Whoops, sorry. It gets dark in the center and then it gets lighter as it goes, so you'd have to keep making sure that, I don't know if you can even make sure that you can fix it. We are going on to the next color, and that would be the oxides, and it would be the Oxide brush. We're on the watercolor paper, and I'm going to just try doing it in a circle and then broadening my circle. Well, that looks a lot better than it did before. I'm happy with this on the watercolor paper. At least I am so far. This is the Nina, and I'm just going to do that ball rolling thing. Maybe these are really good for blending on Oxide inks, because you can kind of fix your mistakes with oxides. Like, let's say that we're looking at that side where it's lighter. I think oxides allow you to do that cleanup, where with dyes you'll get dark spots and light spots, but I don't think with the oxides it's going to be that bad. This is that really, no it's not, this is Nina. Don't know why it was so flimsy for me to bend it. Alright, I'm just going to tap around that and see what we think. It doesn't look terrible, but not as good as the watercolor paper. Alright, then, oh, I got it all over this. We'll go to the pen gear and see how that works. I'm going to use my left hand because obviously my right hand isn't playing as good as my left hand did. I don't know. Alright, let's go on to the Recollections by Michaels and see how we do with that. I do think that doing that circular motion does make a big difference with these. It's not bad. Okay, so let's look at all four of them. If I was picking, I think I would pick this one and maybe that one, which would be the watercolor paper and the Michaels paper, because it looks like the blend is cleaner. This blend, even though I worked at it, it's got light and dark spots. And this one, same thing, I really worked at it, but it's got a really light spot in the center. I'm not sure why, because you saw me play with it a lot, and I just can't seem to fix that spot. So anyway, if I was picking, I would say the heavyweight and the watercolor. So then let's go on to our last brush, which is the big brush. And we're going to do dyes first. Watercolor paper first. Pop it out. I'm wondering how this is going to work, if I need to do a circular motion on this too, because it's very large. This would be great for doing really big backgrounds. And I'm making sure I can see that ink across the entire brush. Alright. Wish me luck. You know what, I'm going to practice first on here so that I don't have anybody not do well. The thing I noticed about this right off the bat is it is a very light effect. It's not super dark like the other ones were. It's very light. I kind of dig it. Alright, so if you're going to want a lighter image, maybe this would be the idea. Okay, this is Canson watercolor. We're going to just go over our paper lightly. And as I said, you get a really light, nice. But it's a really clean, you know when you use brushes, normally you get marks from the brushes. There's no mark from the brush there. And it's just a really nice, light effect. I'm happy with that. Okay, on to Nina. Get our brush all inked up. And again, we're going to do this nice and gently. I'm not pushing hard at all, which is nice because, you know, when you have to push hard, back in the old days with those blending brushes, I always seem to have to push to get any kind of color off of those. This one is much more splotchy. Much more splotchy. Okay, on to Pen Gear, Walmart brand. I do like the light coat. I'm not crazy about how the edges are, because this is such a big brush, how the edges are getting darker because you've got, you know, you're coloring over them so many times. You see what I'm talking about? How this is dark, and I don't know what that's about. But yeah, not impressed with that. Last but not least, we're on to our Michael's Recollection. This one blends a lot nicer, I think. So let's look at how that came out. Oh, and again, the only thing you need to do to clean these is I take one of my baby bibs. If you don't know my system, I put a baby bib. I buy these at garage sales and thrift stores, and I just attach them to the arm of my chair, so I always have one accessible to clean with. So what I'm going to do is I have baby shampoo and only about a teaspoon and a half in that entire container. Then I fill the rest of it with water, and I use that to clean things like this. Do one more squirt of water because it seems like I have more baby shampoo in there. It still sounds sudsy, which it shouldn't, because like I said, I don't use that much. So let's put that back in its case. Now we know the cleaning thing was a little bit of a lie. And then last but not least is the Oxide blender. I'm not sure if you could use one brush for everything, but Oxide inks have a waxier base and it tends to leave residue behind. And if you use pigment inks, I think you could use the pigment inks on these brushes on its own brush with oxides. But the dye base, I think, should have its own. If that made sense, I hope it did. Okay, now we're on to Michael's Recollections. I'm going to just tap off a little bit there, and then we'll go around the edges of this. Don't forget that one mark was there before. It's not bad. Not bad. On to our Walmart brand, Pen Gear. I'm impressed with its blending ability, I'll be honest with you, because blending is one of those things that you need the right paper for if you want a good blend. This is our Nina. I think this is Classic Crest Solar White. It's the stuff you buy for like $35 or $40 for a ream of it. I've had it for 4 years, so, you know, I've had it a while. Not bad at all. And then let's go to the last one, which is our Canson XL watercolor paper. I noticed with this that it's harder to get a darker image, but on this paper I'm able to get a pretty consistent blend. Let's start at the top and look at the gold handle. So in the orange in the bottom category, it looked like the Canson and the Michael's Recollections did best. I don't like the Michael's Recollections in this one. I think of all of them, I think the watercolor paper blended the best. This one has a smear in it. This one isn't bad. I don't like that one at all. So we're going to go with the Walmart Pen Gear, not the Recollections. Okay, let's go up here. I like this one too. I guess I would say in this one, I would say the Nina and the Canson XL did the best in with the gold brush. And then, okay, so we've done all of the orange ones. So let's flip to pink. In our first category, I think they all blended really well with the old gold brush. I think they all did a good job. Maybe this one not as much. I guess if I had to pick any that didn't blend as well, this Nina has some weird splotches in the center. I don't know if you can see that, but can you see that right there? Kind of weird. And then this one has some weird blotches, the Michael's. So I'm going to say that the Pen Gear and the watercolor paper. I'm shocked that the watercolor paper blended as well as it did with these. I really am. Okay, so then let's go to the next one. I guess I'm going to say this one and the watercolor paper again, weirdly enough. Then we'll go on to the very bottom one. I don't like this one because it's got that weird mark right there. This one did well. And this one is very light, but I like it. Don't forget that came from something else. If you are going to use your old gold handle, well, let's just say across the board, I think that the Canson XL watercolor paper worked the best on every one. On the gold handled tool that was out last year, the foam brush, and the large brush. So all three of those did really well with both dyes and oxides. Then if you have the Michaels heavyweight, you might want to consider it with the large brush, which would be this, in both. If you're looking for a light blend. And again, with the watercolor paper, it's a lighter blend. It's darker on the watercolor paper than it was on the other paper, but honestly, it worked well on both of those. If you have Nina, the only one of those that it worked good for was the dye ink, and on gold, the gold with this brush. It's the only one that worked well in Nina. And the Walmart pen gear, it worked best with the foam tool in dye-based ink. So our three blending tools we chose to play with, and then the one that worked the best was our Canson XL. In every category, it blended best. I would have never assumed that, but you've seen it for yourself. You might have come up with a different idea when you saw all these. You might have said, well, I thought one of the other ones did a better job of blending. But in my opinion, those are the winners with those tools. So if you're trying to figure out which tool works best with which paper, across the board with not only the last year's gold handled blending brush, but this year's foam brush and the new large brush in both kinds, dye-based ink and oxide inks, this worked the best. I hope this helped you, that you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please tell your friends about me on social media because you know I love that. And thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.